In the wild, there's a fascinating difference between how bulls and bisons react to an oncoming storm. The bulls instinctively run away from the storm, try and outrun it, but they end up prolonging their time in the storm as the storm inevitably catches up to them. The storm follows them and engulfs them, and now they're spending more time in that storm. Whereas the bison, on the other hand, they do the exact opposite. They turn and face the storm and move straight towards it. And what that does for them is they then pass through the storm and they spend much less time in the storm. This metaphor I use it to illustrate two very different approaches to how you could handle adversity and challenges in your life. Being the bison means facing head on the challenges directly. Instead of avoiding discomfort and difficulty, you confront it head on. You lean in to your discomfort. And while this may seem daunting, it's actually shortens the time that you spend struggling with your thoughts and what might happen. Avoiding problems like the bull does often leads to prolonged struggle and an increase in anxiety as the challenge it naturally just catches up to you. Like, you can't avoid the challenge. So adapting the bison mindset builds the resilience in you. By choosing to face the challenges immediately, you train yourself to become more adaptable. Every time you confront a difficult situation, you gain confidence. This is one of the ways you gain confidence, is you attack shit head on. And you learn valuable lessons that can be applied to future obstacles. That's the power of it. The bison mindset teaches you that growth happens through that discomfort. Growth happens when you confront that discomfort. Another reason to be the bison is that delaying the action often makes problems worse. Whether it's avoiding a difficult conversation, procrastinating on a major project or something big you have going on, ignoring health issues, that was a big one for me. Running from your problems don't make them go away. In fact, running from your problems can compound the problems, creating additional stress, creating additional problems for you. When I was in the fire department, we would do physical exams. So annual exams, you'd go down to headquarters, you'd see the doctor, and you'd have a physical, right? Like, they'd do blood work, eyes, hearing. They would just make sure that you were fit. And it was about you just being fit. It didn't have anything to do with the job per se. One of my blood tests came back with an elevated PSA number. The PSA number is the number they use for prostate cancer. And my number came back more than double what it usually is. So they look back and they say, all right, my number was double last year's number. What was last year's? Last year's number was, and I don't remember the numbers, but I want to say my number was like 1.5, and it came back at like 3.5, 3.75 or something. So it was right on the borderline. The borderline is 4. 4 is the number. And I may have just been a little bit over that, and they weren't overly concerned. But what they were concerned about was the increase that it had in such a short amount of time. So now, all the fears come flooding into me. Right? When you're told, when you're in the fire department, and you're told that your PSA number has doubled, the first thing I thought about was the telephone company fires of the 1970s. When I was in the fire department, the old timers would tell us the stories about how there was a fire. Back then it was 9X? It was Bella. It doesn't matter. The telephone company had a fire. That fire, all the plastics on all those cables burned, and the firemen ingested all of that, and they all started coming down with cancers. 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, guys were still coming down with these cancers because they responded to the telephone fires. Well, my version of the telephone fires was the Trade Center. Now, I wasn't a fireman at the time of the Trade Center. I became a fireman just after the Trade Center, but I was a police officer and I was there. I was in that zone for weeks. I was exposed to all of that. So this is what's flooding into my head. I'm oh my God, I have prostate cancer. How am I going to beat this? What about my kids? What about my wife? What about my family? This is what's flooding into my head. And thank God I had the wife that I had, because my wife slapped me silly. My wife is really good on the health side of things. She's really good at doctors and figuring out what the best course of action is and all of that. So I'm very fortunate that I had the wife that I had. And she was like, no, this is what we're going to do. And she was really I was the deer in the headlights. I was kind of frozen. And she was really the bison here. And she was like, no, we're going to attack this straight on. And she did her research. And she found me a premier doctor. And I traveled 2 hours one way to go see the doctor. And the doctor reordered the blood work. And the blood work still came back elevated. Great. More thoughts flooding into my head. He then ordered an MRI. Let's see what the MRI says. Inconclusive. So now we're on to the biopsy. And this is what's really going to tell us exactly what's going on. This is what's going to tell us, yes, you have it, or no, you don't. Imagine going in to find the results out of that test. All I could think about was my kids. And my kids was the driving force that turned me into the bison to push through this. But as we go down and we speak with the doctor says, your biopsy came back. You don't have prostate cancer. You're perfectly fine. Wow. What a relief that was. But by being the bison, I was able to take control of the situation. And by taking control of the situation, I had the plan. So my plan was in my control. And that plan was either going to have me, 1, I was going to be perfectly fine, or 2, if I wasn't perfectly fine, I had the team already in place to attack this aggressively head on. Be aggressive. It reminds me of a study I once read. And the study was 85% of our fears never come true. And of the 15% of the fears that do come true, 79% of those respondents said the fear wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, or I actually learned something from it. And when you do all of that math, it comes down to you have a 3% chance of your fears coming true. So we all lose our heads over what the worst possible outcome can be. And when you actually look at it, you got a 3% chance of hitting that. I would take those odds all day. 97% chance of being successful. I will take that shot every single day. It blew my mind when I read that study. And that study reminded me of Amelia Earhart's, one of her quotes. She said, fear are just paper tigers. Because such a large portion of them never come true. So by taking control, by being the bison, I was able to create that plan that offers that best outcome. Right? Life's difficulties like the storms are inevitable. Our difficulties are going to come. But when you develop the mindset of meeting adversity with courage, you become more comfortable navigating the unknown. You become more comfortable forging forward. You become more comfortable leaning in to those challenges. And when you do that, the more you practice being the bison, the more you develop the internal strength that helps you stay calm and focused. Even in the face of life's greatest challenges, you can remain calm and focused. It's kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid. You're the bison charging the storm. It's like the phrase, rip off the Band-Aid. We've all literally ripped the Band-Aid off. And it's hurt in the moment. But that pain went away so much quicker than if we just kind of peeled it off little by little. So rip it off. Being the bison allows you to develop resilience. It allows you to grow. It allows you to become stronger. So let's wrap this whole thing up. Being the bison and not the bull means adapting a mindset of courage, of resilience, of proactive problem solving. You're being aggressive. Instead of prolonging your struggles by running away from them, you confront them directly, minimizing the time you spend in that storm, minimizing the time you spend in discomfort. You emerge stronger. I've never faced a challenge head on, came out on the other side, and didn't learn something from it. I've never faced a challenge head on. Took my lumps, covered up, took my lumps. Some of them were brutal, but I've always been able to look back and glean something from it. It made me stronger. Just covering up and pushing through made me stronger. It made me, all right, I could take a hit and I don't have to worry about it. I could take a hit, I could survive that. Being the bison, facing it head on, move through it and grow from that experience. Guys, we live in the numerator, not the denominator. We're always focused on building results, solutions, and we never want to hear excuses. Go out there today and be unstoppable and absolutely crush your day. Have a blessed day.